It is 7:16 and Anne has called from Penrith. What would you like to say?
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Well, I just wanted to make the point, because often I listen to these conversations and it always seems to me that the most obvious explanation is always overlooked or avoided. I'm looking at a graph here, which I did send through on WhatsApp, but obviously everyone can't see it. It's the ONS Labour Market Survey, and it shows the number of people who are economically inactive and due to long-term sickness. And in January 2020, there were 2.1 million people, and from then it skyrockets, as you say, and goes up to 2.8 million. So there was an increase of 33% from January 2020 until December 2024.
Okay.
Why would the answer, or at least a large part of the answer, not be the COVID pandemic? The government and the politicians and the people who are in charge of the economy declared that the pandemic was over, that it was no longer important, that we didn't need to worry about it anymore. They encouraged everybody to just carry on with their lives, go ahead and not worry about being infected. That has definitely led to people becoming long-term sick. I myself, in October 2021, based on the public health advice I was given, I was 39 years old. I apparently didn't need to worry about being infected. Went about my life, got infected, and was disabled by it, and was unable to work. But it's not just me. I'm just one person, and there are millions of other people who the exact same thing has happened to, and it is always ignored. And I do genuinely believe that is on purpose. So what is happening? So you're talking about this Times article. The government are shocked and surprised, apparently, by this massive increase in the number of people who are suffering with long-term sickness. The government sanctioned the mass infection of the population, reassured everybody that it would be okay for them to be repeatedly infected. Now we've got lots and lots of people who are long-term chronically ill. And what do they want to do about it? They want to remove the safety net. They sanctioned the infections, and now they want to remove the safety net. I think that is despicable. And any discussion that is talking about the increase in long-term sickness that doesn't talk about the long-term harm to health that is caused by COVID is intentionally, as far as I'm concerned, misinforming people, because this is happening. There are millions and millions of people around the world. Some estimates, which were from a long time ago now, were 400 million people around the world who are suffering with long COVID. And everybody is scratching their head about the increase in long-term sickness. It's madness.
Yes, I think that you've said so much there that I think is so very important, Anne, and I'm so sorry to hear about your experiences. And again, you've made me remember, so I went to China many times, but I went after SARS. And a long time after SARS, so, many, many years after. And everybody was still wearing masks as almost like a hygiene thing. Yeah. And I remember speaking to my Irish friend about it and her saying, yeah, we wear masks here when we've got a cold and stuff, like way more than you do in the UK. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's not this huge culture. If they're doing it in Ireland, it's not this huge culture difference that I think it is. It's just in the UK. We don't like, I'm sure that I have seen more people here in the UK than in other countries not covering their mouths when they cough, yawning in other people's faces.
This is the problem. And you talk about solutions, and as somebody who has been forced into thinking about this a lot more than most. There are solutions. There are things that could be being done, but because it wouldn't. They believe that it wouldn't be politically advantageous for them to start talking about the fact that we do need to think about public health. We do need to try and stay well as a population, and there are simple things that we can do to reduce transmission. It is so frustrating for as somebody who was disabled by COVID and now has to try and live in a society where everybody is under the impression that it is mild and it's not a problem anymore. And the reason they're under that impression is because the UKHSA and our government are not putting out public health awareness campaigns. When I got sick in October 2021, I naively thought they're obviously going to have to tell people that this is what is happening. I was horrified. I joined Facebook groups when I got ill, thinking, what the hell is happening to me? Joined these groups and was horrified by the fact that there are these enormous groups with hundreds of thousands of people in, with them all saying exactly the same thing. I'm not getting better. I'm not getting better. Those groups are still enormous, and there's people joining them every single day. And I think that it should be mandatory for everyone to join these Facebook groups and read these comments so that you can see what is actually happening. And the UKHSA are not telling people. I didn't know in 2021 that as a woman who was, I guess, middle-aged, at 39, I was the most, and am, one of the most high-risk groups, because it disproportionately affects women who are middle-aged. Where's that information in the public domain? Are they giving out this information? No, they're not saying anything about it. I follow the UKHSA on social media because I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see the warnings. And 4 years on, there's still nothing. And that is not a mistake. That is intentional. And because they don't want to talk about it, because if they talk about it, they will have to acknowledge that they allowed this to happen and they continue to allow this to happen. But at some point they will have to. They have to acknowledge that this is what's happening, because you're going to continue to disable the working population. And it's not just the working population, it's children as well. Since I became ill myself and found out more about it. I used to be a teacher, I'm a mum myself, and started looking into whether or not it affects children. And of course it affects children. That was always a myth, that children are unaffected. And so I now spend a lot of my time trying to raise awareness about the fact that it is also affecting children. There are over 111,000 children, according to the ONS, from last year's figures, that are struggling with long COVID. Where's that in the headlines? So it's not just the working population. We've got children with it as well. And it honestly beggars belief that any of these discussions are allowed to happen, and all these articles are being written where people are talking about long-term sickness but not talking about the reason why there are now so many chronically ill people. It's not confusing.
Anne, thank you so much for your call. Annie has called from Carnforth. What would you like to say?
Hi, Natasha. Well, I completely agree with your first caller. We in this country had one of the highest rates of COVID in the world. So we consequently have a huge amount now of long COVID. In fact, my partner has long COVID, and he's been bedbound for 3 years after catching COVID in an NHS hospital where there was absolutely no infection control going on at the time. This was in winter 2022. Also, as far as long COVID is concerned, there are really virtually no facilities, no help for people with long COVID. He had somebody come back out from the, I don't know what they're called, the COVID something service, and I thought, oh, well, this might be helpful. Not helpful at all. They were just here doing a tick boxing exercise, which I felt was what the government, was, so they could just say, oh, well, we are doing something. I mean, I have severe ME myself, and I've been on benefits on PIP for years, and I'm in bed most of the time, but not all the time. He's completely bedbound, and we both have carers. So there's that. And I feel about long COVID that what's happening to people with long COVID is what's happened to people with ME for decades. That is, we were just put on a scrap heap, sort of just, oh, there's nothing really wrong with you, and, just take up your bed and walk, and just, there's no help for people with ME. I can't even think where the nearest clinic is for ME round here. Somewhere like Newcastle, which is 2.5 hours drive away, and I'm far too ill to go, even if somebody took me that far. So there's that. There's also, obviously, that's been mentioned before, so many people waiting for operations. waiting for treatment if you've got mental health problems. There's huge waiting lists. So there's that, and there's also, we are an incredibly unequal. Sorry, I'm having a bad day today with Emmy. My brain's scrambled. We're a very unequal country. There's 16 million people living in poverty in this country, and 5.2 million of them are children, according to the Roundtree Foundation. Now, it's long been known that poverty and unhealth.
Yeah.
God, go to God.
It's the biggest vulnerability factor in all ill health, whether you're talking physical or mental. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Annie. I'm only moving on because of time, but you've made some really important points there, and sending you lots of love.